All right, we are all the way recording, not live, but all the way recording. Um, we want to start off by thanking Pastor Chris for this opportunity to share on her podcast. I mean, on his podcast, forgive me. Um, at this time, and so we really appreciate it, and we're gonna open up the floor. I'm thankful to every igniter that's able to come on and those that may join as time progresses. But at this time, we're going to have our covenant brother, who is a covenant connection to IUA, to facilitate this great opportunity, this podcast. And his name is none other than Dr. Obadiah Ben Zadok. If y'all would help me, I hope I said that right. I hope I did due diligence. Uh, but he is going to share and facilitate this conversation um, for us on tonight. So right now, I just return it. I mean, I return it. I turn it over into your hands, sir. Well, I guess I return it back to my hands. I guess I was saying it right.
Thank you, Apostle. Greetings to my Igniter family. You know, it's good to be here and be able to share information and put things out there that may be beneficial to some. And what in this season that could be considered life-changing and life-altering.
If you're talking, sir, we cannot hear you. You have frozen up on us. The freeze is real. Okay. If you need to go out, okay, he's probably going to go out and come back in. So I'm going to introduce us to what it is that he wanted to speak on. Well, okay, he's returning.
All right, I'm sorry, folks. I'm back. I'm sorry.
We can't see you.
Sorry, you can't see me.
There you go. Hello, welcome.
There we go. All right. Well, I'll just get right to the point. What we are going to talk about, I was thinking about this. It's something that I've been working on study-wise, is because we are a system and a society that goes according to a solar calendar, unfortunately, but that's a whole different talk show. We are entering into the year 2022. And I was doing some research on the significance of the number 22. Mm-hmm. And what I think is very interesting about the number 22, we are getting pretty much a foretaste of what 22 is going to bring us. I say that because just from looking at the damages that have been done through that severe storm that swept across the middle part of the country last night, that has taken so many lives. There is, ever since recorded history of storms, there have only been 3 F5 tornadoes that ever hit this country in the month of December. 3. And we have been recording weather phenomena since the 1870s. Also, it is said that that particular tornado may be the longest continuing streak of tornadoes ever recorded. Wow. And 22 in the Hebrew, because those of you who study Hebrew know that in the Hebrew alphabet, there are only 22 letters. So it is a completion of a thing in the 22 in regards to the language of God. In other words, God will now begin speaking something new after the 22. How does God speak to us is a very good question, because oftentimes we believe that the Bible is an audible source of God, and I hate to break it to you folks, it's not. The Spirit of God can only illuminate what is on the page, which means that what He shows you, He may not show me. So God is not the author of confusion. Notice it says the author of confusion. There's a reason authors write books; they don't speak them. So God does not get confused with the writ, because what He says He means, and He doesn't need a book to say what He means. So in this season of 22, the number 22 in the Hebrew means manifested results of your desire. In other words, in the year 2022, those who have had things in life that they are waiting to manifest to come to pass, that they are not speaking to everybody else, because that's what a desire is. It is an unspoken thing that you have hidden in your heart. That's what a true desire is. It will be manifested in 2022. Now, do understand, manifestation in God can only occur through exposure. So if you're not willing to put yourself out there and have people look at you from every angle, and you feel threatened by what people think about you, manifestation is not going to happen, because manifestation does not come without penalty. Light cannot be light until it gives one heat and one burn. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Some people will get illuminated by you, and some people are going to get burnt by you next year. In other words, everybody can't be in the light. We are gravitated towards the light, but the source of the light. But everybody may not comprehend the light. Everybody's not going to understand what you see. Now, here's the crazy term. Of us are going to be able to see it, but not all of us are going to be able to comprehend it. In other words, there are going to be some that are not going to understand what God is doing, but God is going to reveal it to everyone, understanding to everyone. And God is going to send people that are going to have that understanding that people are going to start gravitating to. And the people that are of limited understanding,
we lost you, Bishop.
of what's going
Bishop,
on.
we missed you. Go back to people with limited understanding.
It has a lot to do with the fact that there are some of us who have been isolated from the modern understanding of what God is doing, because He's preparing us to be revelators in the earth. And people are going to see that revelation. They're not going to maybe not understand it, but they're going to see it. I'll give you a perfect example. A person who a lot of people thought was strange, but they gravitated to in recent memory, is a Gertrude Stacks. Now, we know Gertrude Stacks was not exactly your typical church mother. She wasn't your typical church anything. You didn't know what to call her. Some called her Mother Stacks, some called her Dr. Stacks, some called her Stacks, some called her Apostle Stacks. They didn't know where to put her. This particular move of God, they won't be able to label exactly where you fit, because you're no longer a fit according to the labels. Because as you mature, you are testing out of the churchiness of this thing. Revelators are on a higher plane than the church. Because first of all, we recognize that the church is sick and the church needs help. So in the year 2022, we're going to start to see, forgive me for using this churchy word, we're going to see a shifting of the attention span of the believer. They're going to realize that they have not been given all that they need, and they're going to need someplace to go to get fed. So that's going to be the distinction. Those who are willing to eat and those who are continuing.
Freezing up on us, Dr. Obadiah.
So there has to be a coming of knowing for those who don't yet know. We have to emphasize knowing. The church must evolve into a place of knowing. If the church does not evolve into a place of knowing, the church will die. The kingdom will suffer violence and the church will die. Yes, Bishop.
I have a question. Could it,
Yes.
and this is just a thought, could it be the church that as we have known it will die? However,
Yes.
the church of today will rise, will come into fruition, will come from the cave, if you will,
Yes.
come from the isolated place, if you will. Yes, let me.
That's why, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, because I didn't catch the last part of what you said.
You good? Go ahead, sir. Thank you. To froze up again.
Okay. Because the end was breaking up. You know how my system is. That's why it is so foolish to do elevations in the current church. That's why it's foolish to do elevations in the current church.
He froze again. Dr. Obadiah. Well, Kizzy, welcome. It's good to see you on here. Although we don't see you, we see you. So I just want to say hello to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Okay, sorry. I'm only gonna be on for a second.
Ooh, welcome. I'm not sure what happened to Bishop Obadiah. Okay, he will be back. But he's just really giving us a forecast of what he sees that the year 2022, what 2022 means in the Hebrew, and what that looks like for us next year. So that's really what he's talking about. He wanted to talk about the number 22 since we're going to the year of 2022, because it has significance, meaning. It's the ending of, or the beginning of, because in the end there's automatically a beginning. So they are, we make them duality, but they're actually one. And so I think he's coming back with us, just to give you a heads up on what he's talking about.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Welcome back.
Thank you. But continue, Bishop. I'm done talking, really.
I was done. I was just waiting on you. I was just telling her
things now.
I was letting her know what you were talking about and where we were. So it's back to you. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions in regards to what manifestation or, we left off basically with what I said was that the church needs more ascension than elevation. This rampant onslaught once again of making senior leadership is redundant, and it's unnecessary. It's very much unnecessary. It's like, sometimes you just got to declare a thing so that you can come. Unless a seed goes into the earth and dies. That's what the book says. A seed doesn't just go into the earth. A seed can't bear fruit till it dies. So unless there is a death, there will be no resurrection of the church. Everybody wants to resurrect, but nobody wants to die. There has to be a dying. The teachings of Jesus that we have are all about celebrating resurrection. The Hebrews celebrated more at the time of death than they did at the time of birth.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, there has to be a period where we go through a metamorphosis, which some of us are, present company included, where we are testing out of the old system and we're putting our new wine in our new wine skin. we're not trying to keep patching up the old bag. And that's what manifestation is all about. You're not trying to continue to feed a dying animal. You know, we have enough understanding that sometimes you got to put it down before you can pick it up. But the problem is that we spend so much time trying to resuscitate old systems and traditions that, you know, people are losing hope and faith in the God of those. People are looking for solace. They look to science, they look to humanity within them, and basically they're looking for God within in the wrong. You know, they're looking at it through a humanistic point of view.
You're breaking up, sir.
So there are two. Am I clear on that?
You sound like a computer. You might want to go out and come back in.
See if that helps. Hold on a second. Is that any better?
Mm-mm.
Oh boy.
You might want to leave the meeting.
Oh, you sound good.
You might want to leave the meeting and then come back.
Let me get out. Yeah, let me go out and come back in. Hold on.
So what you guys think so far from what he's saying? Anybody have any thoughts?
I think
I knew you had some. You look like you. Go ahead.
no, I can understand now why, you know, all this preparation of coming within and the mindset and dealing with the mind, because you got to be mentally prepared for this shift, because you're walking away, or not walking away, you're unlearning what has been passed down from generation to generation, and now presenting the intent, or not saying the whole intent, but you know what I'm saying, the intent of God in this new place. And then some people, well, I know there's going to be pushback, you know what I'm saying, pushback for something brand new that they've never seen before, you know, and don't understand. I wonder, like, and I wanted to ask, would that cause, do you believe, because of the elevation of the old?
I'm laughing at her background. She come back up, Merry Christmas. But anyway, go ahead.
The elevating for the elevation portion that he was talking about are they reviving the old, and then so you'll have the old and then the new kind of like going, you know, is that going to cause confusion?
I don't think it's going to cause confusion. I think it's going to be an introduction into, because people are unsettled within, although they're still within the parameters of the church as we have known it. There are people that are still sitting in there, but on the inside, they're unsettled. Because I was for a long time. You know what I'm saying? But they're still trying to stay within, because when they overcome fear, that's when they're going to start moving in another direction. People have to get over the fear that religion has established in them, and have to really trust what they are hearing and what they're sensing. What religion has said: don't pay attention to your feelings, don't pay attention to whatever, don't pay. You know what I'm saying? So they cause you to deny self in a way that stops you from listening to the God that you really are, the God within that really exists. That you know, Spirit gave life to a mind, will, and emotion, which, you know what I'm saying? And so they want you to deny those things. Those are first things that, even if you look in the garden at the beginning, it's the first things that that so-called the serpent attacked, was those things: her mind, her will, and her emotions. You see what I'm saying? And so you got to realize that's a very important part of our whole existence. And so we've been taught to ignore our existence, our true existence, and to take up what man has deemed whatever. You know what I mean? To conform to man's, to be conformed to this world, and this world, their way of thinking. what they deem to be whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes. Okay. Back to you, Bishop Obadiah. That's my best way to answer it. But you can ask.
The perfect.
Go ahead.
The best way to piggyback off of something you said, if you know, it's just like, and I have to do this because I guess it's what is familiar to most of us. The story of Moses. The basic story of Moses is nothing about the Ten Commandments. It's about a man who's been assigned by God to show a group of slaves that they're not slaves, they're Israelites. Until they came into the knowledge of who they were as Israelites, they couldn't see the land of promise. So it took Moses to tell them who they were, because they were so content on being slaves. And they walked through the desert and wandered in the mindset of slavery. That's what the wilderness was. The wilderness was not a physical experience. It was a mental one. We have slavery is a mindset. Pharaoh is a system of the world. It is a society influence. Society tells you you're a slave. Society puts more emphasis on your color, on your sexuality, on who you live with, who you sleep with, what you eat, what clothes you wear. All that is Pharaoh. That's a world system. Moses, who was one of the first progenitors of Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness pulls you out of the world system and separates you and shows you the inner divine, so you don't have to submit to the world system. The reason why people keep going back and forth, in and out and back and forth, and kind of try to justify straddling the fence is because they're not conscious of the Christ within. When you're conscious of the Christ within, you'll no longer straddle the church fence. You'll get out of everybody's prayer line. You'll quit crying and belly aching. You eliminate a whole lot of things that we do in the church. You'll stop saying, God help me, and then you'll start looking more within and realizing that you have the fullness of the Godhead bodily. You'll stop calling yourself a sinner saved by grace and walk in the integrity of who you are in Christ. But we don't do that in the church. We still encourage people to look for a God when it's a God within. If we would teach in the church that God is on the inside, we may have less people, but we'd have more free people.
Mm-hmm.
The church is bondage. We don't teach freedom in the church. We teach bondage.
You teach partial freedom.
We need to set the captive free. We don't set the captive free. We keep people blind, lame, crippled, and crazy. And just because you laid your hand on their head and prayed a healing prayer doesn't mean you got them delivered. Delivered means to go from one place to another. So if you go in the prayer line and got your hands laid on you, and then you're in the prayer line the next week, you got delivered from what? What we need to be delivered from is the mindset of how the church operates. The Black church especially, it ain't nothing but a bigger plantation. The biggest slavery 2.0 Black folks have is the Black church. They teach you to fall in love with Jesus. Jesus ain't ever tell you to fall in love with him. He said, love God. But we don't teach you about God. We teach you about Jesus. Jesus was the way. He wasn't the destination. He was the way. If we would teach Jesus from the standpoint of guidance and teaching rather than worship and revering, it would change the whole paradigm.
Yep.
There is no sin in knowing yourself.
Mm-mm.
That's what God tried to show Adam and Eve in the garden. Who told you were naked?
And that was the freedom.
No one told you were naked.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Who told you were naked? God has been a God about freedom since the beginning.
Mhm.
But what we've done is we put fig leaves over the parts that we don't like. We don't want to talk about sex and AIDS and polyamorous relationships and all those things. And that's even in the affirming churches,
Mhm.
which is the reason why most of our affirming churches are messy, because we don't want to talk about things. We just want to keep reacting to things.
Mhm.
When you're really walking in the spirit, you're walking in freedom. God likes the fact that you ask him questions. God doesn't get offended when you call. Mother, because God done us far too long. Tiptoeing and eggshell walking around God if we're going to manifest anything. And that's what year 2022 is all about. It's time to walk fully in your understanding of what this is. If you're going to be spiritual, be spiritual.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about being holy, because holy is different than spiritual. They'll teach you how to be holy in the church, but they won't teach you how to be spiritual.
But even their way of
They'll
teaching you
teach
to
you
be
how to
holy is
separate,
not being holy.
but they won't teach you how to ascend. Exactly.
They've
Because being
used
holy
that.
it's more to do than just you separating yourself from a certain thing or a certain activity. It's not separation so much in the vertical, it's separation in the horizontal, not so much in the horizontal, but it's separation in the vertical. In other words, there's some things you got to ascend and get over. It's not you not dealing with them because of how they smell or how they look or whatever other vice you may think offends your nose. It's about looking at people from a different angle and perspective, and you see them as souls and not as flesh. That's what holiness is. We're so busy glossing up our flesh to look holy, we forget what the concept of holiness is.
Mhm. They use
The
holiness
concept of holiness has nothing to do with the clothes you put on your back,
they use that to
or how
conform.
you fix your hair, or how the women sit on one side and the men sit on the other.
That's conformity.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But all we did in the church is form another type of conformity.
Mhm.
Or another type of slavery.
The average church that takes on the name holiness has more bondage in it than sin does.
Mm.
You think
But then you
about it.
also gotta look at
We
the
spend so
origin.
much time telling people what they can't be and what they can't do.
Did he leave us?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you went out. We didn't hear what you said.
No, I'm still here. I just couldn't hear what she said. She said, I heard the old part.
I said, then you gotta understand. We know that all this stems from how Christianity
Am I
became, as
frozen?
far as with the Bible and everything. It's how this all originated to keep a people in bondage or keep a people controlled.
It was to create a system.
Yeah.
Before then,
Can I
was
say-
without system, but they were in culture. And it was to take you away from your culture and create a system. And in these systems is where the control comes from,
Mhm.
where they can control the narrative or the intent. What did she say?
She said, can she say something?
Yeah, just raise your finger up because I think we're off with the timing. And if you
Okay.
raise your finger, he'll see you and call on you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
I think also the more we, he gone.
He coming back.
Look at me, he gone. I also think the more we focus on how bad these old systems are, or how bad religion is, and how they've done this and they've done that, it still keeps us away from igniting someone who is not awake. It takes us away from still accomplishing the purpose, because we're still at this point pointing out, well, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, that church is the problem, that mindset is the problem, that how do we fix it? I guess that's where I'm at in my life. Like, okay, we know what the problem is. Let's fix it. So moving forward, how do we minimize the, I don't want to say pointing fingers, but how do we make it more to where this is how you come out of it? If this is what you have, or this is how you think, or this is how you operate, this is a way to, this is what, how you get out of it, or this is what you do, or these are the steps. Even if we can't walk them fully through, because it's their own journey to do, right? How do we, I get them to the first part? Like, okay, we know that that's that. Let's get them to where they need to be, or at least planting the seed to get them there.
I think
Does
it's
that
the
make
same
sense?
way. I think it's the same way we do when we go through therapy. You got to first acknowledge the problem.
Right.
And so I think what is here is an acknowledgement of the problem so we can get to the answer. But some people have to first see that it's a problem. And a lot of what I'm learning as I'm journeying, and especially as I'm embarking and encountering and embracing this new revelation and understanding, is that a lot of people they can sense a problem, but they really can't give name to it. And so I think what this is naming it, bringing it to the realization, and then here comes the answer. I don't think it's a pointing of fingers, but you can't really bring people into an understanding if you don't show them and make them realize that this was not right. However, this is. You see what I'm saying? This took us from this and this whatever. And so I think it's as I'll speak, like the end is really the beginning. I think you can't really really help people get to this understanding if you don't point them, and you got to point them in order to redirect it. You see what I'm saying? It's just really a redirection. And so I think it's really that. I think it's coming to the knowledge and bringing to head what keeps us from whatever, and then introducing them to it. Because the truth is, there's a battle going on at that moment. And because whatever you've been rooted in the longest determines how great the fight is. And so sometimes in the fight, we have to be reminded of why that was wrong. The unsettling you feel around it. Why? Because it really takes from the freedom that we really have. It really takes you from who you really are. So when you're feeling unsettled like that, you want to know what it is and why. And then you want to know the how. Because then I can't help nobody else if I never get to the root of it. If I never understood what the problem was, how I can't help you. Because I can't, no therapist or nobody in counseling ever deals from, okay, how do we fix it? Wait a minute, do you know what the problem was? And so I think the pointing back is to point you forward. I don't think, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's necessarily a point. This is wrong. This is wrong. And I'm not speaking to any certain denomination. I'm speaking to it as a whole. Because all of them is a form of bondage. It's not a form of free thinking or free will, or to feel free to feel or sense or grow or go by what you feel within. It loses you from that. And it says it's got to be this way, this way. That's why they all have their bylaws. And I'm glad that I tried to do a ministry or did a ministry for the time, because it taught me the structure of it all. You got to have bylaws that you govern yourself by. You got to have certain things in place, because this world is about systems.
It is.
You see what I'm saying? This world is about, and I believe, and I'm not against systems, but I am against systems that take you away from your authenticity and from your freedom. And I know people are like, well, how can you build a system like that? When you love when you take conditions out of things.
But the system is love.
The system is love. The system is love, it's authenticity, it's freedom. When you build a structure around those things, then I feel like that's what we're gonna have to try to do.
But people don't believe love is a system. That's why.
I mean, it is in our systems, through this, what have you, and then it's created abroad when you spread it. But and when I say systems, it's what governs you.
Exactly.
So it's a you know what I'm saying? God is a
Right.
God of He is a God of government. The Bible says government was on his shoulders. He is a God of government, but his principles and his nature is what governs it.
Exactly.
And so that's my take on it.
The body of Christ.
What did he say?
Is the nerve of the body of Christ.
You said something about the body of Christ.
I said love is the nervous system of the body of Christ.
Oh, okay. That's good. Mm-hmm.
But I think that once
because it's love is what makes you feel that compassion. Hit a dog, he'll holler. You stub your toe, you're gonna holler because of the nerve. You triggered something. What triggers the emotion, what triggers the Christ conscious is love. We do this from a place of love. When you experience spiritual neuropathy and can no longer feel things, the suggestion is to remove it rather than continuing to live with it. So there has to be some type of stimulation that keeps the love going, that keeps the nerves functioning and flowing, and which is exactly why, it's funny if you look at your own body, and I can speak to this because of my own neuropathy in my legs. When I go to the doctor and the doctor works on my feet, I barely feel it, if I feel anything at all. But I look down at what he's doing and I see, because I'm a bleeder, apparently. So, I didn't feel it, but I know they did something to me. Sometimes I thank God that I don't feel it, because I'm sure it would hurt if I did. So if there has to be a blessing in it, that's the blessing. But I say all that to say this: you don't want to develop spiritual neuropathy, because you always want to come from a loving, compassionate place in everything you do. The book says Jesus looked upon them as a shepherd that had no sheep and had compassion on them. Do likewise.
But we can't. You know why we
gotta
can't?
start looking at people like that.
And what has stopped us from that is the lack of love for ourselves. And that's why it's so important that it starts with ourselves. You can't give continuously what you don't do for you, what you don't know, what you don't encounter, what you don't have for yourself. And so in order to give it out, you got to embrace. That's why it's been such an important time during the whole COVID. God brought us back to ourselves, that we could learn to love ourselves. Even the things we call shortcomings was actually the thing that I hope I'm saying this word right. Catapult us. Y'all know what word I'm trying to say.
Catapult.
Us back within. So this time when we go forward, it will be from the love that we've gravitated for ourselves, the grace that we have given ourselves, the empathy that we've had upon ourselves. I've been dealing with a lot of people who have been going through things and trying to face things that used to overcome them or used to get them down on themselves. And my first thing is when they was trying to take a test to accelerate on their job and they failed. And I was like, look, it's okay. Show yourself love. Give yourself mercy. It's okay. Next time you're going to score higher. It doesn't matter how many times we got to take tests. It doesn't matter what the process is. The thing is that you continue to love you. Don't look down on yourself because of an outward, what looks like failure actually is something that's driving you to overcome something within you that you feel like you can't overcome. Your fear of testing, your fear of not passing, your fear, or whatever it is, it's really causing you to love you no matter what. It's not my accomplishments outside of me that dictates my greatness. It's the greater one within me. And so the importance of this time is to get us back to that place. So we don't be, so ministry ain't being what it's being. It's not been somebody pointing fingers to you and telling you to walk away that they fall in. It's us having that grace and mercy for each other, and not pointing fingers at each other to bring each other down, but pointing fingers to keep us in the direction we're supposed to be going. So the pointing of the finger is not wrong in its totality, because I got more fingers pointing back at me. It's when I'm okay with these fingers pointing back at me that I can instruct you or point you in a direction, because I've dealt with these things and I have the mercy and grace for my own self, that I can have that same thing for you and hopefully wake you up to having that for yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother doctor. Did he hear me? Yeah, I think he froze up on us again.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, go. It's your turn. You tag you it.
I was just enjoying what you were saying.
I'm done.
Was that to me or was that to Pastor Ellison?
That was to you, sir. Did you have something, Pastor Ellison? Because I
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But basically, in summation, and this is just one last note. Pay very close attention to what your soul is trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Take every effort to learn how to listen to your soul. And oftentimes we don't listen to our soul because we're surrounded by so many people, places, and things. And you know, one of the things I love about living out here in the country, I can hear God so clearly. And although my internet stinks, my connection with God has never been more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you got to take time to let him talk to your soul. It'll keep you out of so much. He reveals so much when he just has free access to speaking to your soul. You could be sitting here minding your own business, doing something else, and he will drop something in you, and you will get that spiritual kaploosh, and then you find yourself in the middle of going deep. It just blows your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear all these prophets on Facebook and things, he's going to blow your mind. No, he's not blowing your mind in the flesh, beloved. He's like your little Facebook prophecies. So if God, and this whole shifting thing, we use these words, but we don't understand what we're using. And that's been the problem of the church all this time. We throw around words that we don't know just because we heard some other preacher say them. And now we've turned into a familiar spirit, which moves us further and further away from understanding. We got to stop mimicking and we got to stop faking. We got to soul. Our soul requires integrity and authenticity at the core of who you are. You have got to be authentic. That way you won't fear when you're in the rooms you don't think you belong to be in. Mm-hmm. That way you're not intimidated by other ministries and other ministers and all these other things. You can show up anywhere and the presence will be on you. Mm-hmm. Moses had to learn the same lesson. Jeremiah had to learn the same lesson. I'm not saying that you need to be these people. I'm just letting you know fear and intimidation are brothers. Don't allow intimidation to cause you to feel you need to emulate rather than be authentic. Nobody needs a clone. You don't need a clone. Don't be a clone in this season. Be authentic to your spirit. When your spirit tells you to stay home, stay home. When the spirit says, no, you don't need to get the vaccine, don't get it. Don't make no one force you into a place of fear. And we need to learn that in 2022. Get rid of the fear. Turn the news off. If they start talking about something that to put some fear in your heart, change the channel. You got 400 of them. Change the channel. Put something else on. Stop feeding your spirit fear.
Mhm. Hello? Okay, I think he
That's
froze
where
again.
unconditional love comes from. It doesn't
Okay.
come from the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Am I back?
I think he froze again, huh?
Yeah.
I think one of the ways to tell when people have shifted is when you've shifted to this new or this renewed, I want to say renewed, because we had this understanding before. And so when we begin to walk in this renewed understanding, you seem to have a heart for the underdogs. And the reason why you seem to have a heart for the underdogs is because those are people that have not yet understood how important and how much they got in them.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Because people have put them in a category because they are different or they're not the, but those are some of the most powerful people that this world needs, that these different organizations need, and they just don't realize. But why? Because they're kind of intimidated by your difference.
Mhm.
And see, I have been a person that had issues with intimidation. I've been around a lot of educated people, but felt so less than or intimidated because they were educated. And all I got is the spirit leading and guiding me, but I didn't realize that I got everything leading and guiding me. And that's leading and guiding me is sure. It's not some conclusion some man has come into, but it has been truth all along. And so, see, I had to change my perspective to not look at the outward man because they have some type of accolades to make myself look like, oh, because I don't have a degree or education, that I'm not being educated. And that's the thing, and so when he says we can't be in intimidation, that's my thing, because I know I will sit amongst people who are educated and I am not educated as they are. But Spirit told me on more than one occasion, not just through speaking to me within, but even somebody outside of me says, God said he's going to do it for you without it. And so I have to walk in confidence and in that whatever tables I end up at, I'm more than enough to be at that table, because it is the greater one that's in me than he that is in the world. And
Absolutely.
so when he said
Absolutely.
that, I could definitely, say that to be true, because that's been my thing. Intimidation is big on me, being intimidated, by people. And I would even be connected to people that I would be intimidated by because it seemed like they knew or carried more than me when the Spirit is speaking to me the whole time. You see what I'm saying? And so that's a thing. That really is a thing. And so I have a heart for the underdog because they don't know, they don't realize the power. And those that see it and it was intimidated by it, make sure they stayed low or out the picture, or didn't embrace them because they didn't understand that they had all the power to bring them up, to bring them to an understanding of who they are and the power that they are. But they wanted to be powerful. And that's how you can distinct. That's how you can tell. people that are transitioning to this, it's a us, it's not a me. Although it's a me in order for there to be a us. And so it shows how it all works together. You see? And so it, yeah, that's a big thing I've noticed lately. The Lord is really, I don't care. Me and Tasha be going back and forth about the Detroit Lions and how they suck and how they whatever. But I ain't playing that. I said, I hope they come back and they win. I said, let them have their one win. You see what I'm saying? We go back and forth about that because if from my heart, I'd be like, that's why they can't win, because y'all fair weather fans. I said, they ain't never. But things can change at the drop of a dime. Don't give up on them because they've never. I said, it's the energy of your fans that probably caused them to never win. And man, we'll be going back and forth. I told her she better not say nothing else to me about the Lions because she ain't no real fan, you know. But this is our friendship. We be just going back and forth. It ain't, we cool, you know what I mean? It's just how we be joking around and going back. But I have a heart for the underdog. You see what I have a heart to bring people that don't know. These people that think they already know, I leave them where they are. Because it's not until you can humble yourself and see yourself for who you really are that I can help you. Because I had to do that for myself. But those that don't realize it, it seems like it's just a time for that. It's time to grab those that those that seem to be great on the outward. It's time to pull at those that don't understand that the greater one is on the inside. And then they present.
Well, any good coach will tell you that, and we can use the Detroit Lions for an example. It takes 3 years to build a team, especially if you are a team that has been used to suffering loss. So there has to be 1 year of seeing who's capable. There has to be a second year for proving, and then a third year for results. And that's the way the cycle works. That's just like with this particular thing we're dealing with in the earth called COVID. We're going into year number 3 with this. This is a way. According to the book, it says, after 2 days, he will revive us. So, God, whenever you see something in the word of God that says 3 days, it doesn't mean 3 literal days. That means it is 3 days just means process. When Jesus was crucified and buried, and 3 days later he rose, it doesn't mean that he was in the grave 3 days. It means that he was in process of transformation. That he was transforming from his fleshly body into his saintly body. In other words, the transfiguration that we too must go through in order to embrace consciousness. When Christ was cooking the fish and they put his hand in his side and all those were moments of consciousness. They were not moments of physical putting his hand in his side. But that's a whole different talk show.
That show is. That's a whole nother teaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because things are not
the resurrected Jesus was a transfigured Jesus. We forget that there was a moment on the hill where Moses and Elijah came and ministered. So even if Jesus wasn't a physical person, for real, Jesus was a system that needed to be transformed from a fleshly understanding into a saintly one, regardless.
Because I call Jesus a resurrected mind. To me, he's a resurrected mind. Thoughts that that re. He was trying to reintroduce us back to. So he was a resurrected mind, because we only live out what we think. We only live out the condition of our mind. And so Jesus was
say that again.
Yeah. So that's what Jesus was.
We only
to
live
me.
out the condition of our mind.
Yeah. So he was showing
And
us a
what regulates the
reconditioning.
condition of our minds? Our hearts.
Mhm.
Yes. And what regulates the condition of our mind? Our hearts.
Mhm. So the heart is the shampoo. The mind is the conditioner.
Come on.
And how we live it out is the detangle. You see what I'm saying?
Head and shoulders.
I think we all can understand that because we all wash our heads. You know, women, y'all do a little more with the detangler and stuff. I ain't got nothing to detangle, but I'm just saying.
I will sing. Praise the Lord.
And now you're talking about the natural hair, folks.
Y'all still gotta wash them wigs and detangle them. So
Oh, I said, no, I got hair under here. The natural hair people, we got to detangle. We got to condition. We got to have, with them, I got to go and sit under the steamer. I got to go hydrate my hair. I have to go. It's
the
a lot.
process.
It's way
Mhm.
more than
It is.
Madam
Process.
It's a process.
Mhm. To get an outcome.
yourself.
process.
It's a
Mhm.
process.
But you know what? If you can skip steps throughout the process, but you won't have healthy hair.
Mhm.
And that's the
Mhm.
same thing that we're just trying to say in this. You could skip steps,
Mhm.
but you're not going to have a healthy walk. You're not going to have a joyous time. You're not going to enjoy the time down here that you're supposed to.
Mhm.
You're not going to see all the things that you're supposed to experience and be everything that you need to be if you constantly skip steps. And the only reason why I can say that is because I'm living it.
Mhm.
You're talking about
You'll
having to
never
go
get
back and do steps over that I could have been, but I was trying. I promise, I'm not Jonah, but whatever the girl version of him is, that's who I was.
well, you'll
And
never get the
if I
peace that
had
passes
just
all
yielded,
understanding to yield to the storm.
and that's why I could agree with Dr. Obadiah, because I live in the country right now and I like used to like despise it. I was like, I can't wait to move back to Atlanta. I can't wait to move back to Atlanta. And I said, all this, you're trying to hurry up and run back to Atlanta so you can be distracted.
Mhm.
I have so much more peace in my house being where I am, but I want convenience. That's skipping the steps. That's trying to avoid the process. When I learned to be content, I think it's beautiful. I think that the awakening and
It is.
all this stuff is amazing, and I'm excited. And I don't want to be gabbing on, but I'm totally excited about the process. For one, I took out my Bibles and my journals and my devotionals that have been sitting on my desk filled with dust. And I said, you purchased all this stuff because you wanted to. And it's not so much as what I'm putting in. Yes, it's equally as important what you put in. But right now, I'm really trying to get some of that stuff out that's in there that don't belong. You know what I'm saying? Some of those mindsets, some of those behaviors, some of those the major thing that I struggle with was believing that I wasn't as filthy rags.
Mm-hmm.
Believing that he did the sacrifices already been made. So why am I still trying to pay a penalty that I can't pay?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I trying to crawl around on the ground and try to be lowly because I'm grateful? When you're grateful, you're not lowly. You're not down on the ground and like I'm carrying a cross. I don't have to carry a cross. It's already been done.
Exactly.
Why are you teaching me to live the same life and journey as Jesus? Sorry guys, I had to go pick up my groceries. Why are you teaching me to live lowly and to do that? Christianity teaches you to try to live your life as the suffering of Jesus, to suffer like he suffered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why though?
But it's never his original plan that we suffer. That and see, this is
That's what I'm saying, though.
yeah. It's never was his original
That's
point.
exactly what I'm saying.
Well,
Why are we trying to repeat or relive Calvary?
I can tell
It's
you
already done.
because we misinterpret the word suffer.
Mhm.
The word suffer does not mean to go through something painfully. It means to wait your turn.
See,
You know,
see, there you go
when
again,
when
doctor.
we think of
In my
suffering,
business. Wait my turn, huh?
when we think of it's kind of like in American history, the women that protested for the right to vote were called the suffragettes. And they were called the suffragettes because the word suffragette means one who is waiting for their turn to do something. And these women were waiting for their turn to vote. So basically, it's simply a matter of lining up, like how Amos said, I saw a plumb line coming out of heaven. And in that plumb line is how people have, we line up according to the plumb line of the divine. So all of us have to go through a period of waiting for something. So that's why it's appointed for every man to suffer. Now, does that mean you're going to be in pain and anguish? No, that is a mistranslation of the term. Just like we messed the word blessed. The Catholics have messed it up and called it blessed, which is why they're running around here bowing to a woman and instead of understanding it's the word blessed, not blessed. Just that one little tittle of a syllabic influence has messed up world civilization. Which is why God was so specific when things were written down that when you move a jot or tittle, which in the Hebrew means just the turn of a certain penmanship can change the entire definition of a word. And that's what we've done. You know, we've mistranslated this thing so many times, and then you want people to live according to these mistranslations. You know, it cracks me up. I was watching this video of Vera Hill, you know, the woman that plays the guitar and preaches. And she was talking about there's only the King James Version because it holds all the mysteries. Honey, what? I almost scratched the hair out of my head. I said, King James Version has the mysteries. See, that's the same reason why we run around here with overseers and bishops and not one or the other. Because an overseer is a bishop.
Don't do that, kid.
Go.
I'm sorry.
Go.
I'm sorry. I had to get that off. I can't. Oh my God.
I had two bishops and the overseer. I said, it's two of y'all. Okay.
Come on, people. Get an understanding. Get an understanding. Why can't we just get understanding? Geneva Bible says overseer. Then the King James Version, which is a later version by 80 years, says bishop. So overseer came before bishop. I ain't got no help.
Well, you ain't got no help.
We just
That's what I'm saying. We're making captains for the Titanic. We're building a Tower of Babel.
We're making captains for the Titanic.
Now that was good.
I can't.
Now that was good.
I'm gonna post that. I'm sorry.
Yes, man. But don't nobody want to go down with the ship though.
Nope, not at all. Everybody want to be rescued, but nobody want.
But they don't even. But you're the one causing it to sink.
Yep, exactly.
So
that's why it's so important we're in tune with the spirit.
Yes.
I mean, the spirit being spirit led.
But even with the Titanic, that Titanic is a good analogy, only because there was so much And it's the same way even in Christianity, so much segregation. One, you know what I'm saying? They definitely want to segregate, there's hierarchy. And then even within that, there's more segregation. It's segregation between the bishops and overseers and ministers and pastors, and somebody got to be the top and somebody got to be the bottom. And then in the laity, well, there's segregation there. And then we still want to leave people behind. Even in this, we still want to, only certain people can go. Only the people that we click with qualify.
Okay, let's talk about apostles. The apostles never operated solo. They always worked as a council. How are you an apostle and you ain't never been nowhere? You don't do things by consensus. You do things by single rule. So how are you an apostle? When Paul went to get permission to go on his missionary journeys, according to the book, he went to the council at Jerusalem, not just James. He went to the whole group. We don't have a group mentality in the church anymore. We don't have the come let us reason together mentality anymore. Everything is solo leadership in the church now. He said he'll give you pastors. Jeremiah 3 and 5, pastors, plural. But we make everything a solo effort. We make everything a solo. Apostles weren't rulers.
That's what I said.
There are no rulers in the church.
He never said he would give rulers.
No, there are no rulers in the church. It says that we're not to lord over God's heritage. We're not lords.
Not over his heritage, but we are over his creation. It's navigated in the wrong realm. Yeah.
It's a totally different realm. We tell everybody, all these levels. There are no levels in God. There are only realms and dimensions. That whole new level, new devil. Quit talking that foolishness. Don't even make sense. Drives me nuts. New level, new devil. You sound stupid. Like you playing Donkey Kong with the devil. Sounds stupid.
We're creating them though. We're creating them. Like we created
the devil.
When you speak that opposition, that's what you create. You're creating the narrative. If you're saying more levels, more devils, you're creating the level and the devil. You're creating them both.
Yes.
And words have power. We don't understand how powerful what comes from us is, because we are lords and gods in the earth. So it is in heaven, so it is in the earth. High place, whatever you deem heaven to be. We function from an ascended place. You know what I'm saying? And so
that's who the saints are, though. That's who the saints are. The saints function from an ascended place. That's why people like Gertrude Stacks and Estella Boyd could just be, they weren't clergy. They can go into a room full of bishops and apostles, and the Spirit of the Lord would fall on them so hard and harder than all these higher ups that were in the same room. They never had to get behind anybody's pulpit to operate in what God called them to do. Mother Boyd wasn't a preacher. Mother Boyd was a teacher with an anointing. She didn't have a title other than mother, but she was more powerful than anything in that room. Why? Because she was among the saints. Just because you're a prophet don't make you a saint. Just because you're a bishop, it doesn't make you a saint. Just because you're an apostle doesn't make you a saint. A saint is a certain classification of people who have been enlightened and regenerated by the Spirit and operate at a higher plane than the status quo. That's what we are striving to be.
That's what I want to be.
And you only become a saint through sacrifice. You got to give some stuff up. You got to give some family up. You got to get some people up. You got to get some time up. You got to get some understandings up. Paul wasn't even a saint because he said he was the least among them. He was striving for something that we are. That's why the Bible, New Testament, the letters of Paul no longer serve the saints. That's why we no longer find food in the Word of God, because that's not our nourishment anymore. We eat hidden manna, Revelation, and I will reveal to them the hidden manna and their new name. What you have to adapt, now that you're eating something new, you have to adapt a new name. That's how God showed it to me. That's why Keith Jones is Obadiah Ben Zadok. Obadiah Ben Zadok was not born November the 9th, 1974 in Trenton, New Jersey. Keith Jones was. But the deeper I went in God, and God began to feed me from his hand and not from his storehouse, which are two different things, different talk show, my name had to change because my diet changed. And when your diet changed, your metamorphosis changed, your body metabolizes, your spirit metabolizes and must take on the new. So if you're going to pray and ask the Eternal for anything, ask him, what is my name? He has a name for all of us that are operating from a saintly place. He'll change your wardrobe. He'll change everything about you if you allow it to be. But you have to suffer it to be like Mary did. The only reason Mary could carry the metamorphosis of Christ consciousness in her body, because when she said, suffer it to be, in other words, put me in line for it. And it's not about going through pain, it's about going through his will. You got to be willing to become a saint. He's not forcing it on people. You are not the elect. You are not a people of God. You are a saint of the Most High. You are a separate entity in the eyes of God. You take on a whole different lifestyle. That's why people don't know what to do with you or what to invite you to or how to react to you. That's why you just can't have anybody in your life. Because you're a saint of God. You have evolved into a new system. Yes, Bishop.
But even with that, within the system of the church, because their ego gets in it, it now creates that there's something greater or bigger than those that surround them, or their need to lordship.
Saints have transcended the need of ego.
Yeah, and you don't. Yeah, that ain't even what you do. And you'll check your ego too when it comes, because when you've truly, because as I'm sitting here, I'm gonna say this so I can get it out my system. You grow through process to get to a place of transfiguration. You don't stay in process your whole existence. No. And the Spirit has really been dealing with me about this, about process. And Spirit been remembering me, but they're getting too caught up in process. I need them to be processed from the old mind to this new one so that they can learn that they can transfigure. That transfiguration is not a process, it's what you automatically become. That's what Jesus did on the Mount. He transfigured into light, into a glorious light, it says, amongst those that were still in the process. God, hey, glory, thank you, Holy Ghost. They were still being processed, but Jesus showed them what they are to become after they've been processed or transformed into this understanding that they now can walk through and become and transfigure. It's different. It's a whole different. You can automatically become. It's walking in. There's a character, Marvel's character. I don't know if it's Marvel's, but it's a character that's able to change face and become anybody that it comes in contact with. If he see your face, he can become you. If you see your outer, he's able to transform or transfigure. I can't think of the name of the character at this time. But we're truth be told, and I know this might be hard to, I don't even know if I should be saying this on the airway, but and truth be told, we can really do that. There is a place for that. There is an existence in the earth for that as us. You see what I'm saying? And so once we're processed into an understanding or awareness, there's a place where the work that we do now in process, there is no more work, if you hear what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that exists in the being. And I don't know, I just can tell you what's bubbling out of my spirit right now, that there is a place that's really mystical, that's really
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? We try to stay away from mysticism.
Yes.
People talk about it, but it really is a place of existence, a place of being. Where we saw miracles in the church, but this place is a place that we probably couldn't imagine in our infinite minds or understanding. That really, we ain't really seen miracles. We ain't really seen, you know what I'm saying? We ain't really seen it happen right there before your eyes.
I understand there is a spirit realm. Understand that there's only one gospel in the book that records in Matthew 27 that the moment that Jesus died, saints got out the ground.
Yeah.
Understand? Saints did not originate in the New Testament or in the church. Saints originated in the Torah. And oftentimes when we think of saints, we think about what Catholic folks do and set people aside and beautify and canonize and all that. No. Sainthood is something that has been going on ever since man has walked the earth. Just like there was the Nimrod people, there were saints that came down. When it talks about the angels that mated with the humans. So there was a classification of people already. So you got to understand why we don't get caught up in the genealogy of who we are, because if we really trace it back far enough, which we can't do, some of our origins trace back to saintly angelic beings. And I'm of the belief that people in the church that don't have an affinity for these human beings, because I believe the LGBT community are those people. I believe that when the Bible speaks of angels among us, that he's speaking of the LGBTQ community. I believe we descend from that, which is why there is such a jealousy and a hatred of it in the modern church, because we expose God in us. Because we are walking with a dual purpose. We are walking in our divine masculine and our divine feminine, which was the original intent of God, because El Shaddai is a many-breasted God. The first image you ever saw of God that was put on a piece of paper was a man with breasts, like a woman. It was a hermaphroditic intersexual image. But it was, if you look at Da Vinci's Modern Man exhibit, you will notice the contrast of the body is a hermaphroditic being. And we covered up those parts and we vilified those parts, because if we begin to find out the truth of who we really are, and you're not walking in that truth, that means you're bound and we're free and you're upset. And until you repent of that upset, or you repent of that jealousy, if you repent of putting certain classifications of people in bondage, or what book calls saints in prison, we have been imprisoned from the love of God, and he's setting us free to experience the love of God. He is unlocking things in us and through us. Consciousness couldn't have came into the earth until we started recognizing that homosexuality and transgender lifestyle is not against the will of God. And once we finally got that understanding, and now that we are moving past identification spirituality, if you notice, that's when Christ consciousness really hit the scene. Because the last thing that was holding everyone back from experiencing the love of God finally got lifted. The last stronghold that we had to go through was identity spirituality. We stopped focusing on people's sexuality. We stopped focusing on people's gender identity. We stopped worrying about those issues that used to pervade the church and have people shunned. And all of a sudden now, if you notice, in one form or another, even if they don't admit they recognize it, they acknowledge it in some form or another. But in a positive direction now. 50 years ago, we'd never be here. We'd still have people throwing at us 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 1 Timothy 1:10 and Leviticus and abominations. I mean, if you're still preaching to people about abominations, then you don't believe in Jesus, number one, because that's what the cross was. So, and don't talk to me about my sexuality, just eating pork chops and shrimp, okay? So let's leave that alone. So now that we have a better understanding of identity and culture and sexuality, and it's not a disease or mental defect or abomination or a practice of worshiping idols, or, now that we got that out the way, consciousness has now filtered in. It's not about affirmation anymore. It's not about being welcoming or open and affirming anymore. It's about being conscious. It's about being aware. It's about being present in one's spiritual understanding. It's not an outer God trying to give you an inner experience. It's about an inner relationship that was always there, that needs to connect with the atmosphere that is set by that divine purpose. That's what the focus is on now. That's where the church needs to get to. Set me free from telling me that he's outside of me. He's not outside of you. I don't need to keep screaming up to the ceiling, Jesus, help me. Jesus, help me. Jesus, help me. I don't need to keep imploring that he comes, that he brings his spirit into the room. I don't need to pump you up and tell you, I brought my praise with me. I don't need to do all that anymore. I can walk in the refreshing newness of knowing that when I praise, that vibration is not to praise an outer God, but it's to charge up the God in the person next to me. It's a vibration. And when the vibrations come together, that's energy and that's synergy. That is the smoke that goes up into the nostrils of whatever's in a plane that we've never seen. That's what praise is. Praise is kinetic energy amongst those of us who operate from a spiritual place. The reason why your praise doesn't work is because you do it from a carnal place. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are spiritual. So you can't do spiritual things unless you're a spiritual being. And we keep trying to do spiritual things out of our carnality, and that's how we mess it up. That's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar listened to Daniel, but Daniel was so spiritual, he couldn't get it. So when he went to Nebuchadnezzar and told him, look, you're about to go into the field and eat like a cow, Nebuchadnezzar said, you're crazy, get out of my face. And what did God do to Nebuchadnezzar? He tricked his mind, took away the largest kingdom at the time away from him, and sent him out to a field to sit naked and eat grass. Because he couldn't comprehend the spiritual nature of Daniel or the eunuchs. And the eunuchs were gay men. That's what a eunuch was.
Well, I know it to be so, because when I did my study all the way back to what they said, I looked up the oldest belief system or spiritual belief system or something of that nature. And it took me back to Ananism and how even they used to have sex was sacred to them, and they used
Yes.
to have sanctuaries that they would create for people to give offerings just to be sexually encountered. And there were also same gender loving people in there. There was also, you could sleep with somebody of the same sex. So we go back to existence. We go back to the beginning. We have always been. And so if we've always been from the origination of things, then we are a part of the will of the Father as well. We are our existence came from God. Who we are is as God is. And I think LGBTQ community, we also show the fluidity of God, how fluid, things are, how it's not just you're just this, you're just that, you're just this, you know what I mean? There's people within the world, and I don't even want to just speak to the community. I want to speak to the world. There are some people who don't identify at all with anything, but they do it based on love, on whatever they are attracted to at that time. It doesn't matter the case that it is in. They're dealing with the inward part of that being. They're not dealing with the outward part of that being. And so to me, that's more spiritual, more God than anything that we've come up with, or anything that we may be want. Those people are the people that I love. I mean, those people really shine a light within me for even to change it within me to be more open, And so I'm telling you, it's wonderful. It is wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I know we're gonna have to get ready to get off. Apostle Obi, this has been amazing. It's been wonderful. Thank you for facilitating, because we're moving from leading anybody to just facilitating moves of God, facilitating awareness, facilitating, getting ready, because I've been looking for a word. And the people that we gathered, he was teaching the other day, he said, we're facilitators. And I was like, yes, facilitators. Because you know what I mean? And so I'm really trying to change my language according to my awareness, that we may create a community where everybody matters and everybody is needed and everybody has a voice. You know what I mean? Everybody's gift can function here, and everybody, you know what I mean? And so it's important that we change the language in order for that to happen. With our awareness. So, but I do appreciate you. Thank you, Pastor Natasha, who's always faithful, always shows up, for being here. Thankful to you, TJ, for being here. I appreciate you. You know what I mean? We gotta learn to leave ourselves out. Trying to be an example of what I'm saying. Yeah. Thank you, Adam, for listening in the background. Thank you, Kizzy. She had to go, but I really appreciate her for just getting on. So we're gonna close it out, and I'm gonna send this to her. I'll send you guys the information if you want to hear when this is gonna play, or what have you. Again, thank you so much for coming. Again, Pastor Chris, we thank you for allowing us to be on your platform. We pray and we just clap that up and thank you. We don't take it lightly for you allowing us to share amongst the people that you are influenced, that you influence. And so we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And so we're going to end this now. Everybody, y'all be blessed. I know great things are already happening for us. We are moving in God, yet still in God, if you will. So y'all continue to do whatever the Lord is telling you, whatever you feel from the inside, and y'all be blessed of the Lord.